Everybody plays. Almost everybody. Like my grandfather, who would be disgusted if you called him a gamer, and asks me most times when I see him if I'm still making kids fat for a living. He plays cribbage every day. He's a gamer, right? He plays, and we all play. It's just that right now, games means Halo, Overwatch, perhaps, when you say it, right? And so most people are like, well, I don't play that, so I'm not a gamer. But then they play other things. And so what IndieCade is really about, and what I've dedicated myself to, and what I think is important about trying to be a leader in the space, is set an example for where this very young medium can go, where it can look to learn best practices, new artistic inspiration, and what it can become.
One of the programs that we have anchored here at the CMD campus is our design technology program, which includes our gaming program. The programs that we try to support and develop here are ones that lead to industry jobs. At the same time, we had been approached through our faculty member, David Havalosa, about IndieCade. And I said, oh, maybe we should talk to these folks. IndieCade, in fact, had reached out to us earlier. So really saw this as a great opportunity with the gaming companies that are here in Santa Monica and adjacent to Santa Monica, how we could further develop our relationships that would better our students and their employment opportunities if we did in fact host this conference. And so that's kind of like how it came about.
I feel like this year's set of games are probably some of the most diverse games that I've seen. It is just like, oh, let me play these games. And I just kind of like hole up and...
IndieCade's kind of been running a long time. It's one of those things that's now become a tradition within the indie community. I've never been before. I had the opportunity to speak, and so I thought it was the best time to come and check it out as someone that could come and talk and engage and meet different people.
The exciting thing I think about this year's set of nominees and finalists is that there are all kinds of different technologies. Everything as simple as a tabletop card game, iPhone games, to full-on virtual reality, augmented reality experiences.
IndieCade is special because it really highlights the creativity that game designers have. They focus on unique games and concepts versus just mainstream titles. So I think it really helps everyone get their voice heard. We have digital games and physical games. This is Desert Child. It's a hoverbike racing RPG. And this is UFO A Go-Go. It's an alien party game.
1, 2, 3, shoot. 1, 2, 3, shoot. I got you. Are you ready?
You could have really great gameplay, but if if something visually doesn't stick with you to kind of want to explore deeper into that, that can kind of set you off on the wrong foot. So honestly, I think finding a really great balance between your visual representation and just something solid that you're bringing to the table gameplay-wise is key.
Shrug Island is a 2D musical adventure game. It's a story world which is about the environment. You play on the computer, but it's also a world for animation and for other games. Right now it's released as a digital adventure where you play two people that are reawakening the world around them by changing shape and playing music. The sound designer is also my business partner, and he was a part of building an entire ecosystem that reflects the visual richness of a traditional world built like watercolor, but for the screen.
I inherently believe that technology doesn't feel magical, but when we combine it with objects that are essentially non-magical or non-technical, like a book or a radio, something we wouldn't expect to do things. We can use technology to create magical moments. Curiouser and Curiouser is an interactive pop-up book that actually plays a video game on a screen. As you turn the page, a new level appears on the screen, and those pop-up interactables, the tabs, the peekaboo slots, actually have effects on the screen as a game. It's all Alice in Wonderland themed. Alice in Wonderland already is like a very rich, wonderful world. The ability to create that pop-up book experience, we want something magical to happen. My partner on Curiouser and Curiouser was Yu-Ting Su, my absolute best friend. We didn't really know each other before the project. As we explored it together, I think we both really fell in love with this combination of physical and digital. When we combine physical objects with innovative tech, it creates a new experience, a new delight, and I think it's like almost like a cutting edge. And I believe those combinations, when done thoughtfully and with a sense for the physical, can be truly magical.
Games can be for everyone. Innovation in play doesn't just mean, oh, we have a bigger hard drive and can have prettier graphics, right? It can mean making games for different kinds of people, making games on different kinds of platforms, making games about stuff we don't make games about. And this is, for me, one of the things I'm most particularly interested in.
Independent games are important because they are I think they're a vital part of the overall game ecosystem. If you look at things that have become major commercial trends inside of games, a lot of them have started as independent games. Independent games, I think, are the most important taker of risks in the entire gaming industry right now. Like, we do it, other people see us do it, they see that we are not crazy, and then they're able to put their resources into developing it. And theoretically, we benefit because more people discover that they like games, and then they seek us out.
Crime fiction under the name Sterling Gray, plucky cat always seems to find herself in the middle of a genuine mystery.
Claxo Radio Mystery Hour is a interactive experience housed inside of a toy antique radio. And we stripped out all the electrical components and then put in new microcomputers to house a 1940s radio show. But it's interactive, so every time you turn that dial, you're making a choice for the characters inside of that radio. What I love about it is that it's all authentic. It all feels like could be a magical item that's stumbled into your world. The story pulls you in, and then you begin to realize that the choices you make not only affect those characters in the story, but you as well.
Say, you there? Listening to this radio, you seem a smart, sensible consumer. Why not meet me on Channel 6?
So my partner on this for Claxo Radio Mystery Hour is Jesse Vigil, and we both actually have a lot of commonality interests. We both love Arduinos and coding and wiring. I actually enjoy the wiring a bit more, so I was the one who took the pieces of the radio out and rewired them, kind of pulled out all the components, and then added in a few more. Some actual new LEDs to make it glow demonic red. There's a lot of building that I like to get my hands dirty. And then Jesse was one to tackle the coding in Unity and using their Arduino to kind of have them talk to each other.
I've been a fan of old-time radio since I was a kid. I used to listen to tapes of The Shadow, Richard Diamond, and Philip Marlowe. I've heard a ton of this audio in my life. I became very interested in how it was made. So we recorded it like they did, like Orson Welles or any of them. It's all recorded around a single microphone. It is the modern version of the same microphone they used, and we did it in the same style with people holding scripts with choreographed moving in away from the microphone. So it is a fairly authentic way of recording it, but we added a lot of modern touches. It is now actually driven by a very small PC that fits inside of the radio that's running a Unity client that we wrote with our friend Sean that does a few more things than just if-then. It keeps track of a handful of things that you might have collected, and there are locks, there are puzzles, there are environments to explore.
It is a choose-your-own-adventure, but it's a little bit more complex than that. Choose-your-own-adventure usually just has go to A or go to B. We encourage a bit of deviancy instead of just tuning to channel 1 or tuning to channel 4. If you decide to slide on over to channel 6 or 5, where you're told you're not supposed to go, there are other audios and clues in the radio. So kind of exploring, checking the full dial to see what else is out there, and you learn kind of a sub-mystery as you explore those.
There are people from all walks of game making and different kinds of tastes, right? Because actually the games you love are kind of a matter of taste in many ways. I'm terrible at Twitch games where you have to be really fast, but some of the other jurists really wanted things that were a little bit more conventional arcadey. It's important to have those clashes and be like, well, wait, I don't know, I don't like this game. But then it's a matter of taste, and you can really see value in that other person's perspective.
We have a medical, elderly care game, and we have games about policy.
I'm also a big fan of what's called gamification, applying game principles to just normal, everyday kinds of things that you would not think of as being games, adding rewards to them, and so it becomes like a game, even though it's not really a game. So that's another area that I've been very much interested in.
Activism in games means different things depending on the issue you're trying to address. For me, what it's usually meant is trying to explain something complicated, like a financial instrument or something like that, to players that may not have access to the type of knowledge that would help them understand it, or the time or attention span to really delve into certain issues. This game, Trump's War Tweets, is a little different because what we're trying to do is incentivize people to actually use their political speech and talk to the president directly. And it's played like the game Global Thermonuclear War from the 1984 movie War Games, only orange rockets are launched every time Donald Trump tweets. This happens in real time. Players have to intercept those rockets by replying to his tweets. Actions that you take are actually happening in the real world. So when you tweet in the game, it's showing up on Twitter and becomes part of the presidential record. The game map is actually a map of Donald Trump's mind. So you have things like the Gulf of fake news. On the map is public housing. And if an orange rocket hits the public housing, it blows it up and turns it into a gold Trump tower. It functions as sort of as a data visualization of both his tweets and the gentrification of the Trump empire. I started in performance art and institutional critique and transitioned into tactical media. So the games that I've been making have been coming out of a tactical media space rather than a game space.
The Game is a video game in which you interact with several professional pickup artists who are male seduction coaches who teach other men how to engage with other women in order to have sexual exchanges with them. Some of their practices are very manipulative and very uncomfortable, so the game puts players into the position of interacting with all of these different pickup artists and navigating what it's like to have your space invaded by several men who feel entitled to it, all while you're just trying to meet up with your friend at a bar. My background is as an artist, and I have a background in performance and also collective practices. So for a long time, I operated the Council on Gender Sensitivity and Behavioral Awareness in World of Warcraft. I've actually interviewed one of the pickup artists in the game, Rushvi. I did a 2-hour-long video performance with him, trying to understand his motivations and why he was making these books, why he left a career in microbiology to be a professional pickup artist. I have a very direct action-based practice. This project was an attempt to sort of take myself out of the forefront of the project and just focus on a way of experiencing the research materials themselves. So experiencing these practices without my mediation, me being at the front of that, and just letting players play through them and experience them as they've been written or spoken about by these pickup artists.
I am a game designer and developer as part of a small indie studio of about 5 people. and we make a game called Off-Grid, which is a stealth hacking game about data privacy and mass surveillance. And it's also extensively moddable so that people can tell their own stories about those subjects. I've come from Essex, which is just north of London. I did a talk about games and activism, specifically moddable games and how audiences can use them as tools for activism. I'm an advocate of games being a universe that players contribute to, and I like the idea that in our game there's going to be experts coming at it that will share knowledge that I never could have. We're making a game about hacker culture and mass surveillance and data privacy. We have academics like Biella Coleman, who are anthropologists exploring digital spaces, or famous hackers like Jake Davis and Mustafa Al-Bassam, gravitating towards talking about hacker culture and politics within that context. And making your game moddable is essentially a way of allowing those interesting people to filter in and share their knowledge.
Dnes 27. května asi v 10 hodin 30 minut byl spáchán atentát na
Attentat is Czech for assassination. The game is an educational simulation or serious game about the Nazi occupation of Prague during World War II. It is predominantly a narrative-driven game in which you are playing a young person in the modern age who is trying to learn more about his or her family's past. And you do this to discover what happened to your grandfather during the war when he was imprisoned in Nazi concentration camp. So you're trying to learn about your grandfather's past, what happened to him during the war, and why he won't talk about it. I am a historian and an academic, and I teach at an independent school in New York City. And the lead of the team is an old friend of mine who was developing educational games about the European Union. And so we came together and worked on this project to kind of meld our interests in history and the historical past with educational games and video games.
So I'm showing Lost Words. It's a game of literary portions. It's a word puzzle game that uses classic literature as its base. So you're reconstructing Pride and Prejudice, while at the same time you're doing word puzzles, you're kind of reading it too. So if you've ever felt guilty about not reading some of those classic books, you can definitely do it in a more playful way through Lost Words. It's always been a classic trope in video games that games has film envy, right? We want games to be cinematic experiences with amazing narratives. But games are really a very different thing. I like to say with Lost Words, it's sort of like games have book envy, right? Where we're trying to take this beautiful language and puzzle it and change it and have players really learn to appreciate the cadence of Jane Austen or the eccentricities of George Shaw while kind of puzzling through these different books.
A lot of my work draws on my anthropological and archaeological background, so I try to incorporate a lot of theory and perspective and knowledge of history into my decisions in the design process. If you're removed from the material, you're not going to be as good of a researcher or a thinker or a scientist. I excavated all over the world. There's really something special about that tactile relationship with an object, even if it's just broken bits of pottery, which the majority of things are. You can imagine that someone made it at some point and how it lived and was broken. If you find jewelry, right, you can imagine that someone lost that earring and what they felt about that. So I worked primarily in and around the Middle East in like earlier prehistory because I'm interested in a lot of questions related to society and people and how they organize. Archaeology as a practice and the interpretation of the material and the data that we collect is very much like problem solving. It's generally picking up pieces of things, just like you do in a game, and making a story out of that. It really is about people and narratives and stories at the end of the day. Archaeology is very, very gamey. I worked on a period site in Jordan, a Byzantine site actually, and it was pretty unique because we found monumental architecture that was carved and also really beautiful mosaics. So in 10,000 BCE, I tried to create an experience where the player can explore this ritual site that people would have traveled to. They would meet at this place periodically and most likely feast and celebrate. There's evidence to suggest that. But one thing that I've noticed is that it's hard to make things fun and responsible without blurring some lines or stretching some things. So I was trying to capture a little bit of the feeling of being in this space and experiencing it perhaps as they would have, a little bit of the mystery, but without being sensational, right? Like mystery in the sense that it was special to these people, so we should be respectful of that space. There is narrative in the landscape. For instance, there's a river and the landscape itself is accurate to the plantscape at the time. So you could imagine that the types of plants there tell a story about what people were eating and what resources were available. So I included bits in the environment to sort of hint at the story without there being an explicit narrative. Indie games are important because they are really for everybody. Because there's less pressure from the studio to make back the money, the enormous cost of the production budget, indie games have a lot more space and freedom to explore stories that aren't usually told and innovate and experiment with mechanics.
3, 2, 1.
I'm one of the designers on Ideal Meal, and my co-designer is Madeline Smiley, and our producer is Nicholas Rausch. This is your ingredient, and you have to perform challenges without dropping the cardboard box. We themed it with ramen and started like sewing little ramen ingredients. Each time you play it, it's different. Sometimes you have to throw the shrimp, complete a challenge without dropping the ingredient. Carry the ingredient below the shortest person's knees, spin around in circles 3 times, walk around with your eyes closed. It makes the game fun every time that you play it. I have a background in costuming and cosplay, and a lot of that's prop making. I took kind of that design principle and applied that to making the ingredients. So we knew we wanted to have an egg. Originally, we just made it out of craft foam, but that became a little bit too bendable, so we reinforced it with a thin layer of cardboard in between. So that made it stiff enough that 4 people could pick up the egg with their chopsticks, but also floppy enough that, you know, if they aren't holding it great, then it'll flop over. The noodles were an interesting ingredient to design for. The experience that we were going for in picking up the noodles was of someone who's never used chopsticks before. We tried with fabric at first, but the people we tested with could very easily pick up the fabric. And so we actually ended up changing to corrugated pipe that's made out of a very thin plastic. And so it slides around on your chopsticks. It's very slippery. That whole development process was really fun. We would go to just random stores. We went to IKEA, Daiso, trying to look around and see things that could be used. So a lot of it's like found items or items that you wouldn't expect. They had lots of very interestingly shaped plastic items. So when we needed plastic, we would go and then we would cut up a very thin, cheap trash can or one of the weird rubber plates that they had and cut out different shapes. And so it was very much going to physical stores and actually getting our hands on physical objects and talking with each other. Would this make sense for what we're trying to design? I have met so many great designers and industry connections and friends. My usual kind of weird hybridization gets a chance to get seen by other people. And it's incredibly validating as an artist and designer to see that my work reaches out, even though it's not necessarily traditionally a video game, that it makes an impact and people enjoy it, and it encourages me to keep doing it. IndieCade has opened so many doors for me, and it's been always a delight and a rewarding experience. And then to just meet other designers that are doing crazy and different things as well. I think IndieCade's like a national treasure, or an institution at least. I'm so glad it's there, and I think it holds a unique spot in interactive and game design.
I think games have a lot of power metaphorically and as speech, because you make interactable systems. People poke a thing and it responds, and that's a really effective way to make points about the world and how it works and how systems can work, or to make just a point about a piece of art or convey information. One of the funny things about festivals and things like that, I find, is that when you make a goal for people, then they can make things for that goal. So since there's now a place that is about showing and highlighting and celebrating work in games that is sort of trying to reach beyond what we have, more people have started to make it. I really believe that, and it's a good feeling.